Godzilla Evolved has, well, evolved again for the fourth time. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. My name is Matthew, and today we're taking a look at the next entry in Playmates' Godzilla Kong, the New Empire line, now branded as the MonsterVerse line, particularly the next one we're going to be taking a look at today, the Godzilla Evolved Real Feel version. So this is the fourth time, count them, 4 times, the original 2-pack, the big like 5-pack Ultimate Titan Battle Pack, there you go, and now the Real Feel Godzilla. So being the 4th variant of the Godzilla Evolved sculpt, there's a lot that I'll have to say, but also not a lot in the grand scheme of things. But this is going to be a different review because the whole point of this figure is to feel lifelike, which we already did the Kong, which, spoilers for that video, I didn't really think it was that great of a figure. I thought the overall execution of it was a bit on the downside. I mean, I want to like it, I do like it, but there's a lot of aspects to it I feel like are holding it back from being the best figure it could possibly be. However, the Godzilla Evolved here does have a bit to live up to, given the fact that it needs to justify its own existence. So with that said, does this Godzilla really justify its own existence, or is it just, yeah, another milked sculpt? Let's find out. So, yeah, sculpt and paint. Not really a whole lot to really like cover here because, again, this is the 4th time we're taking a look at the sculpt and paint. But with that said, we're going to go through it anyways. So I'm just going to come out and say the detail has not changed. Sculpt and paint, or the sculpt itself, not changed. What has changed is the material, the colorization, and the paint job. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. Taking a look at the head sculpt here, which pretty much features the exact same details as we've been accustomed to. Okayly detailed mouth, with actually pretty good paint applications for the mouth, and overall pretty good detailing for the scales and such. However, the big draw here for the figure is that the whole figure is going to be made of a flexible gummy plastic and is all going to be entirely made of rubber to give a more lifelike effect, which I don't know if it's right for Godzilla, because Godzilla wouldn't really be considered squishy. Yes, living creatures are considered squishy, like take a human and squish them. There you go. But at the same time here, I don't really feel like there was a lot that Playmates could have done to really like give Godzilla's own identity. You can't really flock Godzilla because he's not fuzzy like Kong is. But for the detail work we do have here, I do like the sculpt work for the sides of the head and the gills. Those make a return here. For the top of the head, it's okayly done. I do like the colorization here for the dorsal plates here at the top. Those look pretty mean and very hot pink, and especially that spray, which gives off like a gradient effect. That looks awesome. The eyes are more boxed in like the 2014 eyes, but are that different pink color. Inside of the mouth, detail-wise, not too much anything at the top of the mouth. You do get that hole, that very slightly hole. And we do get the teeth making a return as well for the sculpt and paint here. The teeth are actually a bit pointier, at least it looks like to me, than the previous Godzilla Evolved. I could just be from memory because I didn't pull one out off the shelf yet to compare them with, but kind of focusing in here for the teeth. Well, really just pulling in, there you go. You can see that it's very much more smoothened over. It has a bit of nice detail and like fleshed out stuff. It has a bit of yellow gunk. I don't know what that's from. My guess is that that's actually from the Beast Glove from Kong. Because like that is actually pretty stuck to the figure. I can kind of get some of it off, but I'm just gonna let that be. Anyway, for the actual detail at work here, yeah, I do like the way that the tongue is painted, being a much more vibrant pink. And the way that the teeth are painted, I don't really have a whole lot of complaints with the teeth. The spray on the bottom, though, being a white, that's an interesting choice. I would have never really thought white would have been the way to go, but it's here, and it's actually done pretty well. And I do like the way it looks here. Also, if you noticed, they actually changed the color of Godzilla Evolved here. Instead of being a more greenish color for the base, it's actually the correct color that should be charcoal, Like, thank you, Playmates. You actually fixed it for this release, which is already why I actually like this figure, generally speaking. But going down, which we have the chest, which is going to be a lot, pretty much the same amount of detail here. We have the white spray that kind of continues on from the neck, but to the sides does kind of lose a bit of that. But we do have some decent, nice sculpt with the folds in the skin and the scales. For the arms, we do have a bit of them, like as far as the detail work is concerned. Because the arms on the original figure were made of a softer plastic, they were always the more detailed part of the figure compared to like something like the chest and pretty much the entirety of the abdomen. But again, you can see all the intricate little details, and the sculpt work just looks amazing. Sadly, the claws are not painted this time around, understandably so. But what's actually an improvement is the arms. They're actually more closer to how they were on screen. Yes, originally they were like much more serrated. Here they're a lot more simplistic and actually just have them like more towards the elbow like it should be on both sides. That's how it should be. And they're painted. So Playmates really actually did something, like actually gave this guy a bit of an improvement, which is awesome. For the sides of the figure though, that's kind of like where my praises end a bit. Well, not really end, but you can see this nasty seam line, and that was because this is on the original figure. And my guess is that they took the sculpt of the original figure, not necessarily the model, but literally rescanned the original figure and made some changes to it, and this seam line happened. Because the seam line doesn't carry through to the legs, and it's obvious that there was something here, like there's no opening here, and it just doesn't look that great. And a lot of the detail throughout like this side, which is a lot of the problems I had with both Godzilla and Shimo, is that the sides of the body were not that detailed. Here I do kind of stand by that, but the softer plastic does kind of help negate that a bit. So at least there's that. For the well, just to give a better view, for the legs here, they're actually pretty long and pretty well done. Like, this actually does have a bit of the rubberiness to it. Like, just gonna show you, very gummy. The limbs especially. But we do have a lot of the nice plating and armor detail, more towards from the top of the leg to the kneecap. And then down here where it kind of gets a little smoothened out. Then the feet, sadly not painted. Although I just kind of realized that is a big toenail. Like, look at that. I don't know if that was like that already, but whatever. So, but yeah, there's actually no like hollowed out stuff here at the bottom. There is actually just blatant copyright info, which is pretty cool. And I mean, does that count as paint? It's painted on, so I guess so. I think it's like a unit number type thing. I don't know. I'm not sure. Anyways, yes, it continues down with that white spray from the chest down to the crotch and where it meets the tail. And before we do talk about the tail, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the dorsal plates. These are beautiful, like absolutely beautiful. They are a lot more closer to when Godzilla's like actively doing his atomic blast, like as far as the colorization goes. It's not exactly a red, even though it shows red pretty well on camera. They're actually more of like a shiny purplish pink. And the reason why is because, again, because there's so much of it, they all kind of like get absorbed together color-wise. And I just kind of realized this. That one's kind of out of place. Whatever. But yeah, the detail work just looks so good. And you can tell Playmates is just really ramping up the detail work. And it also kind of color matches. Maybe not 100%, but this is probably the closest that Playmates has ever gotten. If I were them, I would have just probably done the whole thing translucent. I mean, please, can we get like an all translucent Godzilla Evolved? That would have been killer. But yeah, a bit more detail towards the like round where the body meets the tail. And then we get to the actual tail section, which is all flexible, even though there's no bendable wire in there, but is going to be made of like that rubbery plastic. Sadly, no white paint on the bottom of it, but we do get that purple spray here a bit more towards the bottom side of it, and the pink spray is just on full effect here. Like, this is just, visually speaking, so beautifully done. And especially because, again, the tail was made of a softer plastic, it had a lot more detail and a little bit more leeway compared to other Godzillas within the line. So you did get a fair amount of detail with this thing. But yeah, all the little intricate little segments. There is like a bit of like scuffage on mine because, well, probably just from transit or something. But aside from that, the actual like execution of it is beautiful. The paint's right where it is, and there is like a little bit of a gradient, so it almost looks like it's glowing. And of course, it wouldn't be complete without talking about the thagomizer. Ooh, just look at that. Look at those serrated tail tip blades. Like, this is actually really nice. So yeah. As for like one final look, here he is from the side. Here he is from the back. This side again. From above. From below. And from the front. So, for the Real Feel Godzilla Evolved sculpt and paint, even though technically, so to speak, this is going to be the 4th time this sculpt was used, I would honestly say that, like, sculpt and paint wise, this is the best executed done of the entire like line. It's really well done. The detail work carries over from where it actually does have pretty well done detail. And my only real like absolute gripe about it is going to be like the side pieces not being like overly detailed. Like, they're pretty softened out. But they did fix some parts, like for example, painting these and giving the spines the correct color, as well as changing the body color. And the paint that's here is really well done. If I did have any more complaints, again, it would be like the smoothing out. I feel like that could have been fixed. The seam line making a return because it's obviously not supposed to be here because it's all made of rubber, and the claws not being painted even though they are on the original. But that said, I think that realistically speaking, this Godzilla, I'm just going to say it gets an 8 out of 10 for sculpt and paint. It is absolutely visually beautiful and really just a lot of fun. Next up is articulation. So for the jaw, we have a hinge, which we can go open about that far, close up about that far, just like that. For the head, there's actually nothing here, which I was actually kind of surprised about. For the arms, we actually do get a bit of a rotation here, which, yeah, we can just go a full 360. This arm, can this one also do a full 360? I forget. Yes, it can. So because there is a bit of like rubberized material, you do get a bit more like leeway when it comes to like the overall flexibility of it. For the legs here, which we can go kick up about this far, down about that far, and hold on, let's actually address that quickly. This leg we can go up about that far and down about this far. And if you remember, there was feet articulation on the original. Here there is not. And I do understand why, because the feet probably would have popped off every now and then. But as for the tail, we do get a singular ball joint here for the tail. And we can go a bit side to side. And of course, the entire tail is fully flexible. I do have a bit of problems here for the articulation, because there's always going to be that problem. It's when you have him in a neutral position. Let's actually kind of like get him like this. So everything's kind of like sound, but every now and then he'll topple over. Here, I think he's pretty much structurally sound. Let's actually try and like move his arms forward a little bit. Okay, apparently it's wanting to make me look like a liar. Yeah, the last few times it made it look, Godzilla would fall over. And I'd like go to the washroom, they'll both be standing, and then I come back, boom, Godzilla's falling over. But on the flip side, I will say that as far as like the articulation actually being here, it's surprisingly serviceable, and like I'm surprised Playmates was able to pull off such like different points of articulation on a figure like this being just pure rubber. So I do have to commend Playmates for what they did here. That said, I'm going to say that I don't really like the fact that they got rid of the feet and they never really bothered to include the head, because this would have been a perfect opportunity to give him a head joint. I don't know why they just don't want to give Godzilla Evolved a head joint. You did it with 2014. Why stop there? Anyways, I'm going to personally rate the articulation a 7.5 out of 10. And unlike Kong, who will absolutely destroy his own material as he spins, this Godzilla's rubber will not do that unless you really want to rub him up. So yeah. And so for the first range of comparisons, here he is with all of the other Godzilla Evolveds released in the line, with the standard version, the 2-pack versus Shima Walmart exclusive version, the Target exclusive 5-pack Ultimate Titan set, and of course, the one y'all came to see, the Real Feel Godzilla. Now, I'm going to be doing a much more detailed, in-depth analysis between all 4 of these guys, but if I had to personally choose a favorite, and I'm not saying this because he's the newest, I'm gonna say I personally think the Godzilla Evolved the Godzilla Evolved Real Feel version is my personal favorite. I mean, I might as well just say more towards like the not just the comparison but the outro, but long story short, I think he's just the most well executed of them. While these other ones have problems, and he definitely has his problems, I just think he's the overall best executed. And for those also wondering, since I don't think I mentioned it yet, he can technically fit the heat ray into his mouth. Let's try to at least squeeze it in there a little bit. Doesn't go in all the way because of the rubber and the peg hole size. Color-wise, it doesn't really match a whole lot, so I really don't recommend it. But I also really don't recommend it is... Hitting my camera. See that? That is a rip in the rubber. Yep. Just by pegging it in. Unfortunate, but that's the way it is, I guess. And here he is with another another rubber goji, being the Godzilla Titan Evolution figure with the actual like Godzilla Evolved inside of it, just so he can at least look a little better. And what I will say, it's almost like a match made in heaven for these two. Only he could fit inside him. And color-wise, this guy really reminds me of that of the next comparison, the NECA bootleg Godzilla Evolved. Which, yes, NECA never made a Godzilla Evolved, but you can kind of see what I mean, right? Charcoal black, grayish bases, pot pinks for the dorsal plates, and kind of like a white/grayish stomach. You can kind of see what I mean. As well as the tongues, they're like nearly the same color. Like it's almost scary of how close these two are. And here he is with some classic Toho Godzilla stuff with Godzilla 2001 and Godzilla 1989 from Monsters and NECA respectively. And finally, here he is, well not and finally, but here's another bonus comparison I just decided to throw in. Here he is with the Battle Mechagodzilla, and you might be wondering why this specific version. It's almost scary just how similar these two are. What I mean by that is not only are they identical like designs of Godzilla having bigger elongated arms, skinnier proportions like Mechagodzilla, but the color of their dorsal plates are nearly the same. So really, they're like darkened versions of the original counterpart. Difference is, this guy doesn't come with beam, this one does. Although I do wonder, what does it look like with the beam? Probably won't fit. Actually it does kind of fit. Not a, like perfect fit, but there you go. Honestly, I've seen worse. And finally, here he is with the Real Feel Kong. And what I will say is that of these two, I definitely am going to prefer the Godzilla over the Kong, just because like the actual execution of the gimmick just works a lot better for Godzilla rather than Kong, because there's a lot less problems with Godzilla's more rubbery material than there is of Kong's flocked material. And Kong will absolutely destroy himself over time if you keep swiveling the joints, while Godzilla, he's pretty much new and fresh, and he'll continue to stay that way as long as you treat him with care. Although there is the chance of him pretty much melting away if he gets too hot. How ironic. And so overall, for the Playmates Godzilla Kong, the New Empire Godzilla Evolved Real Feel version, what do I think of this guy? Well, let's kind of talk. He's a great figure. I'll just say he's great. Where Kong was okay, this guy is actually really great. He has a lot of nice detail, especially for Playmates. He has a lot of nice mobility to him, even though he doesn't really stand necessarily the best. And even though I kind of wish he had an accessory, the rubber material does kind of make up for this. And I just love the overall visual aesthetic this thing has. Just having these hot pinks against the dark and blacks and white stomach lining. If I really had to give a recommendation to this thing, if you're fine with just collecting the same sculpt over and over and over again and just want an army of Godzilla Evolved, go ahead. It's $10, Target, Walmart, whatever. At least in the States. Other countries, depends on what the price is. Could be 10, could be 20, could even be 30. I don't know. Those tariffs are going to be a problem these days. But as per my personal rating, I'm going to say an 8 out of 10. Yeah, I enjoy them. Now, you could color me biased and say, well, I just prefer Godzilla over Kong. While that's technically true, there are some instances where I prefer the Kong release to the Godzilla release. For example, the base Godzilla Evolved versus the base Kong and Beast Club figures, I actually prefer the Kong and Beast Club over the Godzilla Evolved. That said, this time around, it really seems like Godzilla is king here, and, well, as we'll do with the outro, let's go ahead and turn off the light here and bring in this. Because, why? Because I just want to bring some melodies back. Anyways, that's all I have for this video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. If moving forward, Playmates does decide to do more Real Feel stuff, I would love to see what a Real Feel Ghidorah would feel like. Or a Real Feel Mothra that could be very silky and bendy. Or even a Real Feel Mechagodzilla. Don't know how they do Rodan. But anyways, that's all I've got. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out, everyone.